The champagne flute slipped from her hand the moment her knees buckled. Grace, Amelia's mother, collapsed onto my floor with a heavy, cracking thud. She began to convulse. Foam gathered at the corners of her mouth. Someone screamed. Someone else dropped a plate. The entire room spun into chaos. And all I could think was, that poison wasn't meant for her. Chairs scraped. Guests shouted. Jacob yelled for someone to call an ambulance. But I just stood there, perfectly still, perfectly calm, watching champagne spread across my marble floor, watching shards of the glass I always used, glitter under the lights, and I knew that drink had been prepared for me. If you're listening to this, then you deserve to know the truth about that night, the truth about the people I loved, the truth about how a 72-year-old woman turned the tables on the two people who desperately wanted her dead. My name is Margaret Hawthorne, and this is the story of the night my own family tried to kill me. And before I tell you everything, make sure you subscribe, because some stories deserve to be heard to the very end. 2 hours earlier, before the screaming, before the poison, my house was filled with laughter. It was supposed to be a celebration, a perfect evening, my retirement party. After 40 years of building my consulting firm from nothing but grief and determination, I sold it for $22 million. Not bad for a widow who started over at 32, with a child to raise and no one to rely on but herself. Jacob, my son, insisted on throwing the party. "Mom, you deserve this," he said. And he said it with that gentle, careful voice children use when they want something. His wife, Amelia, offered to handle everything, the decorations, the catering, the champagne, all those little details she normally complained about. And that should have been my first warning. Amelia wasn't the type to lift a finger unless there was something in it for her. But tonight, she was glowing, floating from guest to guest, laughing too loudly, complimenting everyone, showing off her diamond bracelet like she was auditioning for a commercial. She wanted to be noticed, but not for the reasons she pretended. I was speaking with an old colleague when I saw her, across the room, standing near the champagne table. She looked around, left, right, then reached into her purse. My breath caught, slowly, deliberately. She pulled out a tiny glass vial, a dropper bottle. She uncapped it, tilted it, and let the liquid fall into one specific glass. A glass with a tiny chip on the rim, a flaw so small only I would recognize it, because it was my glass, the one I always used at parties. My heart didn't pound. My hands didn't shake. I'd survived too many storms for that. Instead, I watched quietly, carefully, like a woman who has seen snakes before and knows better than to scream. Amelia picked up the poison glass and walked toward me wearing the sweetest, fakest smile. "Margaret, you look tired," she said softly. "Here, have some champagne. You've earned it." And I smiled back, warmly, sweetly, as if I had no idea what she had just done. But I knew exactly, and that was the moment everything changed. I didn't take the glass. Of course I didn't. But I also didn't push her away. I didn't gasp. I didn't accuse her. I simply smiled, thanked her, and held the poisoned flute in my hand, like it was nothing more than a kind gesture. Because sometimes, the smartest thing you can do is let a snake think it has won. For the next 10 minutes, I carried that glass with me, pretending to sip, letting the bubbles tickle my lip, never my tongue, waiting, watching, letting her believe I was about to drink my own death. And then, the perfect moment came. Amelia drifted to the other side of the room, bragging loudly about her new bracelet. Jacob was laughing with a group of guests. Everyone was busy. Everyone, except Grace. Grace, Amelia's mother, stood by herself near the hallway door, quiet, lost, looking around for something to do, or something to hold. She was sweet, timid, always looked like she didn't belong in the sharp, polished world her daughter worshipped. I walked toward her slowly, casually. "Grace," I said softly, placing my hand on her arm. "You don't have a drink." She glanced at the champagne glass in my hand, the poisoned one, and smiled. "Oh, Margaret, thank you, dear," she said. "How thoughtful." She lifted the glass, toasted me with a little wobble, and drank. One sip, two, a long swallow. My heart didn't race. I didn't flinch, because this wasn't my doing. This was Amelia's. Grace smacked her lips. Interesting flavor," she said. "Is this a special brand?" I nodded politely, and 5 minutes later, her face drained of color, her knees buckled, her body crashed onto my kitchen floor. Convulsions, foam, a strangled gasp. Guests screamed. Amelia shrieked. Jacob rushed in like a hero, but I slowly set down my untouched drink and whispered to myself. The ambulance arrived in minutes, flashing lights, rushed footsteps, shouts cutting through the panic. Grace was still breathing, but barely. Her eyes rolled back, unfocused, her body limp. Amelia clutched her mother's hand, sobbing loudly, too loudly, the kind of loud that doesn't come from grief, but from fear. Jacob hovered beside her, trying to look strong, trying to look innocent. I watched them both, their body language, their whispers, their eyes darting in every direction except mine. The paramedics lifted Grace onto the stretcher. "Ma'am," one of them said to me. "What happened?" I responded quietly. "She collapsed. It happened very suddenly, just like poison does." They loaded her into the ambulance. Amelia lunged after them, screaming, "Please save her!" Her voice cracked like glass. But when she turned, just for half a second, I saw something in her eyes. Not grief, terror. A terror that said, "This wasn't supposed to happen to my mother." Jacob noticed my stare. He stepped toward me quickly, placing a shaky hand on my shoulder. "Mom, you don't need to come. We'll go with her. You should stay here. You've had enough excitement." Pause. Enough excitement. Enough excitement? My life had almost been taken. My party destroyed. A woman nearly died on my floor. And he wanted me to stay home? No, absolutely not. "I'm coming," I told him, my voice calm, but final. At the hospital, they rushed Grace into an emergency room. Machines beeped, nurses hurried, doors slammed shut. We waited in a small, brightly lit waiting area that smelled like antiseptic, and Fear Amelia paced back and forth, her heels tapping the tile floor too fast, too frantic, her mascara smudged, her hair a mess. She looked like a woman unraveling. Jacob sat stiffly, hands clasped, knees bouncing. His phone buzzed nonstop, and he kept flipping it face down to hide the notifications. Minutes passed, an hour, 2. Then finally, the doctor stepped out. A middle-aged man with tired eyes and a clipboard he held like a shield. He cleared his throat. "Well, she's stable for now," he said. Relief washed across Amelia's face. "But," the doctor continued, "she tested positive for a toxic alkaloid compound." Amelia froze. Jacob stiffened. The doctor looked at us all. This wasn't a medication reaction. It wasn't a food allergy. What your mother ingested was a plant-based poison. We're running more tests to confirm the source. A pause. A long one. Then he said the words that made Amelia's whole act crumble. Whatever she drank was contaminated intentionally. Intentionally. Her eyes widened. Her lips trembled. Her breathing hitched. Jacob swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed like it was trying to escape his throat. I said nothing. Nothing at all. Because they already knew what I knew. And they were terrified that I might say it out loud. Back home, the house felt different, colder, quieter, like the walls themselves had watched what happened and were waiting for me to make the next move. I closed the door, locked it, bolted it. Then I walked straight to the kitchen counter, to that champagne bottle Amelia had opened, 3/4 full untouched since the party, sitting there like it was innocent. I stared at it for a long moment, then whispered, "You were supposed to kill me." I slipped on gloves, sealed the bottle in a plastic bag, and placed it into a box I would deliver to a private lab in the morning. But poison was only part of the puzzle. Something told me the truth ran deeper, darker, more calculated. So I walked into my study, closed the door, and opened my security system. Every camera, every hallway, every angle. And then I hit play. What I saw made my stomach turn. Amelia, scurrying in and out of my kitchen long before the guests arrived. Opening drawers, opening cabinets, moving things around like she owned the place. At one point, she pulled something small from her purse and held it up to the light, a tiny bottle. The same kind I saw her use near the champagne. I leaned closer to the screen. Then I played the footage from the dining room camera. That's where I found Jacob. He wasn't preparing food. He wasn't greeting guests. He wasn't helping. He was on the phone. His voice low, urgent, tense. "She'll sign it soon," he said. "Yes, before the weekend. Once she's in the facility, everything changes." No, she doesn't suspect anything. I paused the video, stared at the frozen frame. My son, my only child, talking about me like I was a problem to remove a task, a burden, a stepping stone. My throat tightened. My chest ached, but no tears came. Just a slow, deep inhale. So this is how far you're both willing to go. I replayed the clip again and again, listening carefully to every word he tried to hide. She'll be easier to handle. Once she's evaluated, the papers must be signed. Amelia thinks the champagne will help. The champagne. The signing. The evaluation. Piece by piece by piece. The plan came into focus. They weren't just going to kill me. If the poison failed, they had a second plan, a legal trap, a financial coffin, a way to make me disappear without ever touching my body. I sat back in my chair, hands clasped in my lap, breathing slow. The betrayal hurt. Of course it did. But beneath the hurt, beneath the disbelief, something else rose up inside me. Something sharp, cold, focused, resolve. If they thought I would go quietly, if they thought they could outsmart me, they clearly forgot who built this house, who built that company, who survived more storms than they'd ever imagined. They wanted a game? Fine, I would give them one, but I would play it on my terms. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a stack of papers, a cup of black coffee, and a heart that felt heavier than I wanted to admit. If there was a motive, it would be in the numbers. People don't poison you because they're bored. They poison you because they want something. And for Jacob and Amelia, that something had always been money. I opened my laptop, pulled up my old financial notes, and started digging within minutes. The truth began to surface. Their house? Remortgaged 3 times. Their credit cards? Maxed out. $93,000 in revolving debt. Amelia's online boutique? A flop. No profit. Barely any sales. Jacob's architecture firm? Operating at a loss for 2 years. Clients disappointed. Projects collapsing. Bills piling up. Every section I read felt like another knife between my ribs. My son, my only child, drowning in debt, and too proud or too selfish to ask for help, honestly. And then, I found the thing that made everything snap into place. A document in my email archives. Something Jacob sent me 3 weeks earlier. An invite to tour a luxury senior facility called Silver Pines Estate. At the time, I laughed, deleted it, thought it was just Jacob being overprotective. But now, with everything I knew, I reread the brochure. Private rooms, on-site physicians, mental evaluations, financial oversight services for residents with declining capacity, and at the bottom, in bold, entrance fee, $450,000, up front. I sat back, stunned, silent. $450,000. Exactly the amount Jacob had mentioned on that phone call caught on my security camera. Once she signs, we're in the clear. The facility handles the rest. A facility that required me to surrender all decision-making, to hand over my finances, my rights, my freedom. It wasn't about caring for me. It wasn't about safety. It wasn't even about the poison. It was about control. Control of me. Control of my assets. Control of the fortune I worked my entire life to build. Jacob didn't just want my money. He wanted me out of the way. And Amelia? She wanted the money even more. My stomach tightened. My jaw clenched. I closed the laptop and whispered to myself, so that's the plan. Get me declared incompetent, shove me into an expensive facility, gain control through legal paperwork, and if that failed, use poison. My retirement party had never been a celebration. It was an operation, a carefully crafted scheme, a 2-layer trap, a slow, quiet murder, designed to look like a stroke or dementia or old age. And the worst part? Jacob, my son, had helped design it. I took a long breath, a cold, steadying breath. Fine, I murmured. You want to play with my life? Then you're about to learn exactly who you're dealing with. Because I wasn't just a retired woman, I was Margaret Hawthorne, and I didn't survive 72 years by being easy to kill. My stomach tightened. My jaw clenched. I closed the laptop and whispered to myself, so that's the plan. Get me declared incompetent, shove me into an expensive facility, gain control through legal paperwork, and if that failed, use poison. My retirement party had never been a celebration. It was an operation, a carefully crafted scheme, a 2-layer trap, a slow, quiet murder, designed to look like a stroke or dementia or old age. And the worst part? Jacob, my son, had helped design it. I took a long breath, a cold, steadying breath. Fine, I murmured. You want to play with my life? Then you're about to learn exactly who you're dealing with. Because I wasn't just a retired woman, I was Margaret Hawthorne, and I didn't survive 72 years by being easy to kill. That afternoon, as the weight of every betrayal settled into my bones, I realized something. If Jacob and Amelia were building a trap for me, then I needed to build one for them. Not loud, not obvious, not emotional, but quiet, strategic, precise. A trap they would walk into willingly. So, I began to act. The next time Jacob called, I made sure my voice trembled just a little. "Sweetheart, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed," I whispered. "There's just so much happening all at once." A pause. Jacob's tone softened instantly. Almost too instantly. "Mom, you don't have to worry about anything," he said. "We're here for you. Let us handle things." Let us handle things. The exact phrase that told me everything. I let out a shaky breath. "I think you might be right," I murmured. "Maybe I do need some help." Silence on his end. But not real silence. The kind where you know someone is smiling. Someone is relieved. Someone believes they're winning. After I hung up, I practiced in the mirror. The version of myself they needed to see. A confused smile. A delayed response, a shaky hand, eyes that wandered just a little too long before focusing. Not too much, not too little. Just enough for a greedy child and a desperate daughter-in-law to think, "Good, she's slipping. This will be easy." And the more I pretended, the more they revealed. 2 days later, they came over to check on me. But the truth was clear. They were evaluating me, watching how I walked, how I spoke, how quickly I answered questions. Amelia leaned close with sugar-sweet concern. "Margaret, did you remember to take your medication today?" I looked down at my hands, let them tremble slightly, then whispered, I don't take any medication, do I?" Her eyes sparked, just for half a second. A flash of triumph. "Yes," she said softly, "you do." A lie, but a convenient one. She turned to Jacob. "See, this is what I was talking about." Jacob nodded, his expression grave. "I think it's time," he said, "for her own safety." My own safety. The phrase people use right before they steal your freedom. I almost smiled, but I didn't. I simply stared at them with wide, uncertain eyes. The perfect picture of a woman losing her grip. Inside, though, I was sharper than ever. Every word they said, every glance they shared, every slip in their rehearsed kindness. I collected it all like ammunition, because the day was coming. The day they thought I would sign away my life. But instead, that day would be the beginning of their downfall. 3 days passed. 3 days of pretending. 3 days of shaky hands, slow answers, and carefully planted confusion. Then, on the 4th afternoon, the doorbell rang. I expected Jacob, or Amelia, or perhaps the doctor they'd hired to evaluate my mind. But when I checked the camera, it wasn't any of them. It was Grace, alive. Standing, breathing, but pale, paler than I'd ever seen her. I opened the door. She stepped inside slowly, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Her voice trembled. "Margaret, I need to talk to you. Alone?" I guided her to the living room, poured her some tea, and waited. Grace sat down, took a long breath, and whispered, "I remember what happened. I remember everything." I froze. Her fingers shook as she held the cup. Her eyes filled with tears. "Amelia told me I had a bad reaction to medication, but I don't take any medication." Her voice cracked. "She lied to me, Margaret. My own daughter lied." I leaned forward, careful, calm. "What do you remember?" I asked softly. Grace swallowed hard. "I remember the taste of the champagne. It was bitter, metallic, wrong." A long pause. Then she said the words that hit me like a punch to the chest. "And I saw her, Margaret. I saw Amelia at the table earlier, with a little bottle, a dropper." My breath caught. Grace continued, voice breaking. "I thought she was adding some flavoring, but after what happened, after waking up in the hospital, I realized." Another pause. She wasn't adding anything for herself. She was adding it for you. My chest tightened. My fingers curled into my lap. Grace wiped her eyes. Margaret, my daughter tried to poison you. Not me, you. I stayed silent. Let her speak. And there's more, she whispered. She's been talking about your money for months. Grace looked down, ashamed. She said it wasn't fair that you had so much while they were drowning in debt. She said Jacob deserved it. That you didn't need that kind of money at your age. The bitterness in her voice cut through the room like glass. And last month, Grace continued, she asked me if I knew whether you had updated your will recently. A long, heavy silence fell over us. Then Grace met my eyes. Margaret, they've been planning this for a long time. I nodded slowly. Grace, I know. Her eyes widened. You know? I leaned back in my chair, calm, measured, cold. Yes, I said softly. I saw her poison the champagne. I switched the glasses. Grace's hand flew to her mouth. Then I almost died. Because of her? Yes, I whispered, and she never meant for you to drink that glass. Grace trembled. Shock, rage, heartbreak. Then something in her hardened. Her posture straightened. Her voice steadied. What are you going to do? I looked at her, really looked at her. A soft, gentle woman, broken by the daughter she raised, betrayed, used, nearly killed. And yet, she came to me, to warn me, to help me. I took her hand. I'm going to do, I said quietly, what they never expected. Grace whispered, and what's that? I smiled, slow, sharp, deadly. I'm going to let them think they're winning. A beat of silence, then another. And when they step into the trap, I finished softly, I'll make sure they never hurt anyone again. Grace nodded. Not afraid, not confused, but resolute. Two older women, betrayed by the same family, now standing together. Not victims, not prey, but the beginning of their downfall. The morning after Grace's visit, I made a phone call I never thought I would make again. A number I hadn't dialed in almost 10 years. A number belonging to a woman who once helped me uncover a CEO siphoning company funds right under my nose. Her name was Eleanor Frost, a private investigator with a mind like a scalpel, sharp, precise, and dangerous in the right hands, the perfect ally. I stepped into my study, closed the door, and pressed call. 3 rings. Then, Margaret Hawthorne. Her voice was cool, unshaken, almost amused. I wondered when you'd need me again. I exhaled slowly. Eleanor, I think my family is trying to kill me. A pause. Not shock, not confusion, just calculation. What do you need? She asked. I need everything, I said. Financials, phone records, background checks, digital footprints, and if possible, any evidence of what happened the night Grace was poisoned. Another pause, a longer one. Give me 48 hours. The line clicked off. Those 48 hours were some of the longest of my life. I barely slept, barely ate, barely breathed. Every time a car slowed near my house, my heart tensed. Every time my phone buzzed, I braced myself. But I didn't break, because I knew. This was the moment before the storm. The moment when the sky holds its breath, right before lightning strikes. And then, on the second evening, my doorbell rang. I checked the camera. Eleanor Frost, black coat, black briefcase, expression like carved stone. I opened the door and she stepped inside. No small talk, no pleasantries. She went straight to the dining table, set down her briefcase, and clicked it open inside. A thick folder. She slid it across the table. Everything you asked for, she said. I opened it. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what I was about to learn. The first page hit me like a fist. Jacob's financial report. Bank accounts overdrawn. Late mortgage notices. Loans. Collections. Credit cards. Debt wrapped around debt. But the worst part? Transfers. Monthly transfers. To a single name. Dr. Richard Caldwell. I looked up sharply. A geriatric psychiatrist, Eleanor said, hired often for mental competency evaluations. My blood ran cold. He's been evaluating me, I whispered. Eleanor nodded. Or preparing to the payments began 3 months ago. 3 months. Long before the poisoning. Long before the retirement party. Meaning Jacob had been planning this for a long time. I turned the page. Phone logs. Dozens of calls between Jacob and Amelia. Dozens between Amelia and Caldwell. Then, another punch. A life insurance policy. $700,000. Taken out 6 months earlier. Beneficiary. Amelia Parker. My stomach twisted. She took out an insurance policy on me. I whispered. Yes, Eleanor replied. And she tried to hide it by filing through an online broker under the guise of family caregiving. I kept reading digital receipts, search histories, purchases, and then something that made my breath stop in my chest. A transaction from a discreet botanical supplier known for selling rare, toxic plants. The item purchased? Oleander extract. The same poison found in Grace's blood. My hand tightened around the paper. They really did it, I breathed. They planned all of it. Eleanor closed the briefcase. You hired me to find the truth, she said quietly. And Margaret, this is the truth. I stared at the pile of evidence. Photos, transactions, call logs, insurance documents, bank statements. Everything I needed, everything they never thought I could find. After a long silence, I asked softly, how solid is all of this? Eleanor's answer came without hesitation. Rock solid, enough to bury both of them in court. Or in prison. I looked up at her. And now? I asked. Eleanor folded her arms. Now, you decide what you want to do. I inhaled slowly, deeply, steadily. Then I met her gaze, with a resolve harder than anything I had felt in years. I'm going to finish what they started, I said quietly, but my way, on my terms. Eleanor nodded. Then it's time, Margaret. Time to set the trap. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, not because I was anxious, not because I was afraid, but because the plan finally had a shape. And today, I would begin to build it. I brewed a pot of coffee, sat down at my dining table, spread Eleanor's documents in front of me like a war map. Every lie, every transaction, every phone call, every drop of poison, all laid out like the blueprints to their downfall. I picked up my phone and dialed Jacob. He answered immediately. Too immediately. Mom, are you okay? I let my voice soften. Let just enough tremble slip in. Jacob, I've been thinking, I whispered, about everything you said, about Silver Pines. Silence. A hopeful silence. Then, Mom, really? You're considering it? I sighed. Long. Heavy. I think... Maybe you're right, I murmured. Maybe I do need help. Maybe it's time. He exhaled, but not like a relieved son. It was the exhale of a man who believes his plan is finally working. We'll come over tonight, he said quickly. We can go through the paperwork together. Exactly what I wanted. Of course, I whispered. I'll be waiting. That afternoon, I called my attorney, a man I trusted for 20 years. I explained everything. Not with emotion, not with panic, but with precision. He didn't interrupt, didn't gasp, didn't doubt. He only asked, "What do you need me to do?" I told him. He hummed thoughtfully, then replied, "Simple. I'll prepare 2 sets of documents." "2?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "One real, one for them." My heart steadied. He continued, "The real documents will secure your assets in an irrevocable trust they can't touch. And the fake set," he paused, letting the moment sink in, "will make them think they're about to inherit everything." I almost smiled. "Make the fake ones look perfect," I said. "Convincing, detailed, delicious." He chuckled. "Margaret, you have always terrified me in the best possible way." By early evening, everything was ready. The real documents, sealed in a locked drawer in my study. The fake documents, spread neatly on my dining table, exactly where Jacob and Amelia would want them. A fraudulent power of attorney giving Jacob full financial control, signatures ready, dates prepared, all perfectly baited. A fake hospital evaluation suggesting early cognitive decline. A fake transfer of assets to an account labeled Hawthorne Family Trust. Account balance $1 and the pièce de résistance. A fake letter from Silver Pines Estate approving my immediate placement. Everything they wanted, everything they schemed for, everything they dreamed of, all laid out on my table, waiting. At 7:04 p.m. the doorbell rang. I checked the camera. Jacob, Amelia. Both dressed like they were attending a business meeting. Amelia carried a briefcase. Jacob held a folder. Their faces were composed, professional, almost excited. They thought they were coming to claim their future. They had no idea they were walking into their end. I opened the door slowly. "Mom," Jacob said warmly, "we're here to help." I stepped aside, smiled gently. "Of course," I said softly. "Come in." They crossed the threshold, and the trap closed. Jacob and Amelia stepped into my dining room like 2 actors walking onto a stage built just for them. Amelia's eyes locked onto the paperwork, the fake documents, spread neatly across the table. Her lips curved into the smallest, greediest smile. Jacob pulled out a chair for me. "Mom," he said softly, "we just want to make this easy for you." Easy, the word echoed in my mind like a bad punchline. I nodded, hands trembling slightly, just enough for them to believe the performance. "Let's go through it," I whispered. They sat, opened their briefcase, unclipped pens, arranged papers, predators preparing the kill. But they didn't know the real hunt was already over. I watched Amelia slide the so-called power of attorney toward me, her voice syrupy sweet. "Margaret, once you sign this, you'll never have to worry again." I almost laughed, but instead I reached slowly for the pen, hand shaking, heart steady. Just as I picked it up, the doorbell rang, sharp, sudden, cold. Jacob frowned. "We're not expecting anyone." Amelia stiffened. Should I get it?" "No," I said softly. "I will." My voice calm, steady. I walked to the door, my fingers wrapped around the handle, and then I opened it. 2 detectives stood on my porch, badges out, faces serious. "Mrs. Hawthorne?" the woman asked. "Yes," I replied. Her eyes shifted past me, toward Jacob, toward Amelia, visible from the doorway. She spoke clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We need to talk to you about the poisoning that occurred in your home last week." Jacob's face drained of color. Amelia's smile collapsed. The detective stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "Mrs. Hawthorne," she continued, "we received a toxicology report from the lab you sent the champagne bottle to." Amelia coughed, a choked, strangled sound. The detective opened her file. The champagne contained a high concentration of oleander extract. Jacob's jaw fell open. Amelia froze. Completely still. I said nothing. I didn't need to. The detective kept reading. The same poison was found in the victim's bloodstream. She turned her head. Her eyes landed squarely on Amelia. And the fingerprints on the bottle's dropper belonged to you, Amelia Parker. Amelia stumbled back. Wait, this is crazy. I would never. But the detective cut her off. We also found evidence of a life insurance policy you took out on Mrs. Hawthorne. $700,000. Filed under fraudulent caregiving claims. Jacob's eyes widened in horror. Amelia, you told me, but Amelia snapped. I had to, she yelled. She wasn't going to die on her own. Silence. A heavy, deadly silence. Jacob stared at her like he was seeing a stranger. You tried to kill my mother? Her laugh cracked. Her mascara streaked. Of course I did, she screamed. We needed the money. You said she'd sign the papers. You said the retirement home would take her. You said the doctor would declare her incompetent. Jacob stumbled back, hands shaking. I didn't mean not poison. Amelia, I thought we were just... The detective turned toward him. We have your phone records, your messages, your payments to Dr. Caldwell, your discussions about forcing your mother into Silver Pines. Jacob's voice cracked. No, I didn't know she'd actually... But the detective raised her hand. Jacob Hawthorne, you are being investigated for conspiracy to commit financial abuse of a vulnerable adult. Then she looked at Amelia. And Amelia Parker, you are under arrest for attempted murder. The second detective stepped forward, handcuffs out, cold metal, cold justice. Amelia shrieked. No, you can't do this. This was supposed to be easy. Her words ripped through the house like claws. Jacob collapsed into a chair, hands over his face. I stood in the doorway, still, silent. The detective turned back to me. Mrs. Hawthorne, thank you for your cooperation. You may have saved your own life. I nodded quietly, then looked at Jacob, my voice steady, calm, final. I didn't save my life, I said. I let you throw yours away. The moment the door closed behind Amelia and the officers led her away, the house fell silent. Not peaceful, not calm, but the kind of silence that only follows destruction. The silence after an explosion. Jacob sat at my dining table. The same table where he once did his homework, where he once blew out birthday candles, where he once told me he'd make me proud. His hands shook uncontrollably, his breathing ragged, his eyes red, but not from innocence, from guilt, from panic, from fear. And then, in a broken whisper, he said, Mom, please, say something. I walked toward him slowly, quietly, taking in the sight of the man my little boy had become. I didn't sit. I didn't comfort him. I stood across from him, a wall between us that he had built with his own hands. Jacob, I said softly, what did you think was going to happen? He swallowed hard. His voice cracked. I didn't know she would poison you. I swear, I didn't know she'd actually do it. But you did know, I whispered. You knew she was planning something. You knew she was plotting. You knew she was preparing to force me into that facility. He pressed his palms to his forehead. His voice shook. I thought she'd stage something. Scare you. Make you sign the papers willingly. I stared at him. You thought she would stage my collapse. He looked up slowly, ashamed, pale, small. Yes, he whispered. A long, cold silence filled the room between us. He tried again. Mom, I didn't want you to die. I just needed money, I said quietly. His eyes squeezed shut. No, Mom. I needed help. We were drowning. Amelia kept saying, she said you didn't need all that money at your age. My jaw clenched. And you believed her? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence was the answer. I walked to the table, laid one piece of paper in front of him, a printout from his text messages. The text that broke me. From Jacob. What if she changes her mind? From Amelia. She won't. Not after tomorrow night. Jacob looked at the words as if seeing them for the first time. My voice stayed soft, too soft. You knew, I said. You didn't know the method, but you knew the plan. His voice cracked open. I was scared. I was desperate. I thought we could fix it later. Fix it? My voice sharpened. Jacob, how do you fix trying to steal your mother's life? He broke. Right there. Right in front of me. Sobs tore out of him. Not elegant, not controlled. Raw, ugly, broken. Mom, I'm sorry, he shouted. I didn't want this. I didn't want any of this. He reached for me, reflexively, like a child reaching for comfort. But I stepped back. He froze. I had never in his entire life stepped away from him. Not when he had nightmares at 9. Not when his wife left him once before. Not when his business first began to crumble. But this time he had made himself untouchable. He whispered, Mom, please, don't give up on me. I looked at him, really looked at him, at the man he had become, at the choices he made, at the damage he caused. I haven't given up on you, I said quietly. I'm just finally seeing you. His face crumpled as the truth hit him harder than any prison sentence ever could. You tried to rob me of my freedom, my dignity, my sanity. And when that didn't work, you stood by while someone tried to rob me of my life. He shook his head violently. No, Mom. I love you. And that was the first moment I felt tears burn my eyes, because love should never look like this. I whispered, I believe you love me, but love without integrity is just need. Jacob fell forward, head in his hands, sobbing uncontrollably. I stood still, silent, resolute, because the truth hung in the air like a verdict. He wasn't innocent, and he wasn't a monster. He was something far worse, a weak man who chose the easy path over the right one. And people like that leave destruction in every direction they turn. The days that followed felt unreal, like I was walking through someone else's story, someone else's tragedy. But it was mine. All of it was mine. The morning after the arrests, my attorney arrived with a thick folder and eyes that told me everything was under control. Margaret, he said gently, we'll make sure they can't touch a single cent of your estate. And he did. Every account, every asset, every document, locked, secured, shielded behind legal walls. Jacob and Amelia could never climb. Within a week, Amelia was formally charged with attempted murder. The evidence was overwhelming. The fingerprints, the purchase of oleander extract, the insurance policy, the toxicology. She didn't stand a chance. Jacob's charges were different, but devastating. Financial exploitation, conspiracy, coercion of a vulnerable adult, intent to defraud. When he appeared in court, he looked smaller, thinner, a man who finally understood what he had lost. I was there, not to gloat, not to punish, but to witness the truth. He couldn't even lift his eyes to mine. Good. Actions have consequences, even for the people we love. Grace, my unexpected ally, visited the next day. She sat across from me, hands wrapped around a warm mug of tea. Her voice trembled. I can't believe my own daughter could be capable of this. I reached across the table, held her hand. Grace, we were both betrayed by the people we trusted most. Her eyes filled with tears. But we survived, she whispered. I nodded. Yes, I said softly. And we survived because we stopped believing their lies. A long silence, not empty, not heavy, peaceful, for the first time in weeks. Peace entered my home again. A few days later, I received a phone call, a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a soft, trembling voice spoke. Grandma, it's me. It's Lily. My granddaughter, Jacob and Amelia's daughter, 16, smart, gentle, kind. A child, caught in the fallout of her parents' choices. Grandma, is everything they're saying true? I breathed out slowly. Yes, sweetheart. Silence. A small one. A hurt one. Then Lily whispered, I'm so sorry I didn't know. I didn't know what they were planning. My heart softened. Lily, none of this is your fault. She sniffed softly. Can I come visit you? I don't want to be in that house. Not right now, not with everything happening. A tear slid down my cheek. Of course, I whispered. You're always welcome here. Her voice cracked. Grandma, I don't want to be like them. My chest tightened. You won't be, I promised. You already aren't. When the call ended, I sat there quietly, letting the weight of everything settle into place. Pain, loss, betrayal, but also a granddaughter choosing better, a friend who stood beside me, a truth brought to light, a life reclaimed, justice had been served, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe, truly, deeply, safe, but more than that, I felt strong, stronger than any poison, stronger than any scheme, stronger than the people who thought my age made me an easy target. They were wrong, terribly, fatally, beautifully wrong. A month later, the roses in my garden began to bloom again, stronger, fuller, almost defiant. I sat on the back porch with a cup of tea, the evening sun warming my face, the quiet settling around me like a soft blanket. For the first time since the night of the party, I felt something I wasn't sure I'd ever feel again. Peace. Not because everything was perfect, not because justice erased the pain, but because I had survived it. And I had survived with my dignity, my freedom, and my identity still intact. In the distance, I heard footsteps. Light, hesitant footsteps. Lily stepped onto the porch, her expression fragile, but hopeful. She sat beside me, resting her head gently on my shoulder. Grandma, she whispered, thank you for letting me stay here. I placed my hand over hers, warm, steady. You don't have to thank me, I said softly. You're family. A real smile, small but real, touched her lips, and in that simple moment, I understood something so painfully clear. The future doesn't have to look like the past. We can choose differently. We can break the patterns others tried to trap us in. We can rebuild from the ruins. The door slid open again. Grace stepped outside, carrying a bowl of fresh berries. She looked healthier, stronger, almost radiant. The three of us sat together on the porch. 3 women who had been underestimated, dismissed, nearly erased, but not anymore. Grace laughed softly. You know, she said, it's strange. You'd think betrayal would break us. I smiled. But instead, I said, it carved us into something sharper. Lily lifted her head. Something stronger, she added. I nodded. Yes, stronger. A long, gentle silence settled over us. The kind of silence that feels like healing. The kind that feels like a new beginning. I looked out at my garden, at the roses bursting with life, at the golden light bathing everything in calm, warm truth. And I whispered to myself, growing old isn't the same as growing weak. Some of us only grow sharper, quicker, more dangerous to underestimate. And those who forget that, those who mistake age for helplessness, they pay a price far heavier than they ever expected. Because in the end, the greatest revenge isn't anger. It isn't violence. It isn't cruelty. It's living well, living strong, living free, and making sure the people who tried to destroy you never get to enjoy the fruits of their own betrayal. I picked up my tea, inhaled the soft scent of jasmine, felt the sun warm my skin, and for the first time in a long time, I slept peacefully that night, not because I had survived the storm, but because I had become it. And if you've stayed with me till this moment, don't forget to subscribe. Every story has a voice, and I'd love for you to hear the next one.